Chill Computer Guy here. Thanks for tuning in. Today's video has to do with the Quantize function. We're going to double click on a clip that's going to open up down here in the timeline. So basically the Quantize function, what's going to happen here is you can set this to whatever grid you want down here. Now if you find this changing by itself, you might have adaptive grid turned on. I recommend turning this off and setting this to just 16th notes. 16th notes, in my opinion, is the best kind of general purpose grid size for all this stuff down here in the lower section, you know. But you'll notice that if I play my notes in by hand, which I do quite a bit, I will play my note in, you know, my notes in by hand, bass lines or top line melodies. I'll actually play in once in a while, even chord progressions. Actually, I've been playing chord progressions in quite a bit. The only thing I really actually paint in or plug in with the, you know, the pen tool or whatever are drums and stuff like that. But oftentimes when you put these notes in, I already quantized this one here, and so you can see that it's set to a 16th note. But you can see the note is only going to lock to the 16th note. But if you hold Shift, you can get right in between. You got to hold down on Shift, okay? So we're going to put that right in between just to kind of show how this Quantize tool works, because there's two different Quantize tools. We're going to actually take this note here and again hold the Shift down. We're going to make this so it's not quantized. See, that's not quantized to the 16th note. So you can see if you go down here, right click, you can quantize, okay? And that's, or you can just hit a Q. Okay? So this is basically the auto quantize function. Now this is something that you have control over, believe it or not. This is going to automatically quantize by default just the front of the note. I believe the default is 16th notes. The idea here is this is something that needs to be set up. And what I mean by that is let's go ahead and hit Q, which is the default for the quantize. Now if we hit Q here, it will quantize. Now it quantizes the front of the note but not the back. You're like, well, this is I want it quantized on the front and back. And the Q by default doesn't do that. What you got to do is you got to set that up. And to set that up, you go to the Quantize, which is Alt Q, which is a Quantize option. It just has a box around it. If you click on this, it's going to give you this dialog box. Now what you want to do is, I recommend 16th notes. That's just kind of a general, you know, if you're just starting out. But, you know, Quantize, everybody knows how to use Quantize. Quantize is something that's super important. Now what you want to do is, by default, the end amount is set to 0%. What you want to do is turn this up to 100%, okay, and then hit OK. And this is called a sticky setting. In other words, next time you hit the Q, it's going to adopt whatever setting you set there in the settings dialog, okay? Again, so if I hit Shift and pull this off the grid, okay, and now if I hit Q, you can see it quantize the front and the back, okay? So that's a very useful thing. That's the Quantize tool here in Bitwig Studio. Be sure to set that up. So if you just hit Q by default, the back of your notes or the end of your notes will not be quantized. But to set that up, you want to set the bottom end amount to 100% using your Quantize setting dialog box. Now keep in mind that you can set this with just a normal little humanize or a normal little shuffle. Play around with these settings. These settings are very, very powerful, okay? Especially when it comes to making very fine MIDI notes, specifically hi-hats, or if you want to make a lot of very specific notes. We're going to have a tutorial coming up on hi-hats. Hi-hats are something that are super important to get right, because it is something that will cause a lot of ear fatigue. See, I'm trying not to swear on the tutorials, so don't let me do that again. All right, anyway, Chill Computer Guy, thanks for tuning in this evening. Again, this is how the Quantize function works here in Bitwig Studio. Be sure to subscribe, give me a thumbs up, comment below, and we'll see you again next week. Bye-bye now. All right, so that's where we're at. That's where we're going to keep this track right here.